Good afternoon, and thank you, and welcome to our April's in Service. Today we have the pleasure of having Mr. Jody Henry, who's the president and CEO of ArcPoint. ArcPoint is a drug testing and DNA and alcohol testing program. Mr. Henry is here with us to discuss what this program is. Just as a programming note, this will be our last in-service here at Richland County CASA. Make sure next month you tune into your website, which is www.rccasa.org, to find all future in-services. Without any further ado, this is Jody Henry.
There is a chart I put together for you that just kind of listed the most common methodologies: urine, hair, and oral fluids, the window of detection time frame, advantages and disadvantages of each. And again, what we oftentimes see is, whether it might be a DSS case or whatever, people may recommend both a urine and a hair initially. Just let's get a broader window of detection. We want to see, have they used it in the last couple of days to, is this somebody with a problem? And then once they get that initial test result, then the appropriate action can be followed up from there. And certainly if someone tests positive with a urine today, a week or two from now you want to have them tested again. Don't do a hair test because they're still going to be showing positive. That's not going to give you the result you're looking for. You want to continue to test with that same methodology so that you're not crossing over your timelines. Now, again, looking through those advantages and disadvantages of each, we've got urine, hair, and saliva. So someone comes in and they're wanting to test for further back, but the individual has gone online, figured out, or trying to look for a way to try to cheat the drug test, figures out with hair it's very, very difficult to try to put something in the hair to thwart a drug test. So they shave their head. They shave all the hair off their body. We can go to the fingernails. Okay? There's not a lot of information online about this, so we oftentimes catch people in this way by being able to take their fingernails. We can test up to 15 different drug categories, and drugs can be identified in those clippings. Again, it takes a couple of weeks to get into the nail beds and to grow out, 2 to 4 weeks following the ingestion, but it's going to stay in there much longer. We're going to have a much longer window of detection. It can be 6 to 8 months in the fingernails because those wear off. It's a little bit shorter than toenails because they wear off faster, but toenails we can see it sometimes up to 12 months. Certainly the drugs, once are incorporated into the nails from the bloodstream, they're going to remain locked in there until that nail is taken off. So, and whenever we do a fingernail collection, we're taking all 10, as much as we can get from the fingers, because again, it's all based on the weight of the specimen that we can collect. And we've had a lot of success with fingernail testing when someone comes in trying to figure out a way to beat the test. And again, we can detect the parent drug and the metabolite here, so we also, with fingernails on a child, we can test for passive exposure if the child has the residue on their fingers. Now, for new mothers, things like that, if you have an issue of that, we can do meconium and umbilical cord testing. These are new tests that are out on the market, and not the most fun for me to go and collect, but they certainly can be done. So if you can tell if the mother was using during pregnancy. Marijuana does, where marijuana kind of calms the system down and slows you down. The synthetics, the reactions are very inconsistent. A lot of reports are increased heart rates, vomiting, seizures, and severe hallucinations. A lot of the reported deaths of teenagers from this have actually been suicidal, because once they're on this, and the psychoactive ingredient just really affects the kid's judgment, and they've committed suicide. So that's where we see just some of the sad cases. At the time I put this together, it was not illegal in all states, but however, the federal government has put a bill through that has made this an illegal substance now. Okay? Now it's just the state laws are scrambling, the different states are scrambling to figure out how they want to deal with it, how they want to address it.
I would think as the sophistication of these drugs are becoming, does that mean the responsibilities for programs like yours to be as equally sophisticated to detect them?
Absolutely. We have to stay one step ahead. As new drugs come onto the market, the laboratories that we work with are constantly in research and development in developing ways to detect those drugs. And again, whether they're trying to detect them in the urine, like the synthetic marijuana, as new as it is, the labs have come out with a way to detect it in the urine specimen, but we don't have a way to detect it in hair yet. Okay, now that's a way that is in R&D, and certainly once the next new drug that hits the market, and we all find that, the laboratories will be working on that too.
Well, no, we've all heard about the athletes who take these drugs and they say that they're hard to detect. Granted, those type of steroids and other type of performance enhancers are not the same thing as the illegal drugs, although they are illegal. Are there programs available that you can even use to detect those type of steroids and, as those athletes say, hard to be detected drugs?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, the more knowledge you have of what you're trying to detect,
Okay.
then as long as you're working with the laboratory that says, hey, I want to look for these common or these types of substances,
You got to be in the ballpark.
yeah, you got to be in the ballpark,
Of
exactly.
what we're looking for.
And it is a leapfrog effect. Once the laboratory comes up with one way to detect a certain type of drug, somebody out there is inventing another one.
Mhm.
That does the same thing that won't be detected.
Okay.
So yeah, and it is kind of a cat and mouse game of a lot of times whenever we're testing individuals, they may switch their drug of choice. And that's where you kind of want to keep mixing up the panels that you're testing for. If you've got somebody on a routine case, because if they know they're coming in for a marijuana test and you're just testing for marijuana, well, they may switch that drug or switch to find another drug. And if you're just continuing to test for marijuana, you're not getting a window into that individual's environment. You're not seeing what they're really doing. So the most common methodologies here, and these we employ all these: urine, hair, saliva and oral fluids, fingernail, meconium and umbilical cord. We also offer skin and sweat patch. This is primarily for drug courts. This is for constant monitoring. This is where we put a patch over the individual's arm and they wear it for up to 5 to 7 days. And as they secrete fluids and sweat, then we remove that patch. It goes off to the laboratory and we can determine from that if they've ingested any drugs.
You could tell whether they actually had the patch on for a period of time too.
Yeah. The patch is very tamper evident. So if they try to take it off or whatever, there's going to be 3M is one of the manufacturers of this system, and they've already thought through that.
Okay.
You can shower with it. They can go swimming with it on. But if they've tried to take it off, then the adhesive is such that it doesn't reapply. So it becomes very evident that the individual has tried to tamper with a sweat patch. There's a magazine out there for drug users called the High Times, and the High Times says about sweat patch, the way to cheat it is don't get it. Just avoid it. So because they just don't have a way a way around that, and that's where, again, whenever you're under that monitoring stage, drug courts use it quite frequently. It's very popular with them. Blood and environmental testing. Additional testing services offered by ArcPoint. DNA. All of our DNA tests can be court admissible, where we're testing for enough markers to determine linkage between an alleged father and a child. We do paternity, so to determine whether it's a biological father. We have had maternity issues, whether it's the biological mother or not. Siblingship, grandparentage. We also offer immigration DNA. So if there's, and I've got a case right now where the child is in Honduras and the father's here, and we can coordinate collections anywhere across the country, and actually across the world, and determine linkage that way and maintain chains of custody intact. We did recently have a case where the father was in the Army, or the alleged father was in the Army and was in Germany, And so we arranged a collection in Germany, got the specimen to the laboratory, arranged a collection with the child, got those to the laboratory at the same time, so they were able to run the test and determine linkage there. We also offer background checks and environmental exposure. So again, from drugs to heavy metals. I've got a client here in town that their employees are around lead baths and things like that. So we do a blood draw on them several times a year to determine their exposure to that lead, to determine how to react from that. So to summarize, again, ArcPoint offers the most comprehensive range of testing services. We uphold very stringent collection procedures which are going to ensure accurate results. Again, we're not the police, we're not trying to catch someone. We work on behalf of our client to get them an accurate result. So if somebody's trying to cheat a test, we try to stop that so that we actually get the real specimen and find out if in fact they're positive or negative.
So
And
they're not charged for that or anything?
I'm sorry?
They don't get punished for that?
What's that?
Trying to beat the drug test.
You know, if it's an employer situation, if it's a caseworker, they may see that as, you know, certainly I'm sure, you know, that would be evidence to put in front of a judge and let them react to it. In the state of South Carolina, it is illegal to sell urine for, or sell like a urine specimen for someone to try to cheat a drug test. So in the state of South, I think you can have, there's pretty hefty fines, and there's even imprisonment written in our laws in the state of South Carolina for someone who's caught and convicted of trying to sell urine. Now, there's not specific on if they're trying to flush their system, because, I mean, if you drink a lot of water and you come in for your urine test, you're not having anything to hide. You just happen to overindulge on water that morning, and your test is too diluted to test, so we'll wait. Your specimen is too diluted to test. So there's no specific laws on that. But if you're caught selling your specimen, selling urine, then that is against the law and punishable.
So if you don't pass the drug test, will that be passed down to, will that go on your record or anything, so that you won't be able to?
Well, it depends on who's ordering the test. Okay? A mother dragging their child in for a drug test, they get the results that's just for them. You know, and again, we uphold the strictest of confidentiality. If you know, an individual may want to come in because they're going for a job interview next week, and they want to see if they've got something in their system or not. They get their results. Now, a court-ordered test, if a judge orders a drug test, okay, those results are going to go to that judge. Now, he may have certain things in place, or they may have a situation where, all right, this father who, if he's agreement in place, if he's using drugs around the child, or if he tests positive on a drug test, he loses custody. Those could be repercussions there.
Is there a financial consequence to some of these testing, one test versus the other, urine over here with fingernails, in terms of price-wise?
Absolutely. Your urine tests do continue to be very popular because they are right now the lowest price point. And because that is in sheer volume, that's the most widely used testing methodology. As you go to saliva, hair, fingernail, the costs of those tests are going to increase. Another variable that's going to increase that cost is how many drugs are you testing for. Testing for 5 drugs is less expensive than testing for 14. Okay? So naturally, yeah, the more that you're testing for, the more that it's going to cost, and then the methodology does impact price.
Typically, what would a urine test run?
A urine test can run anywhere, depending on how many drugs you're testing for and whether it's instant or lab-based, just a broad range anywhere from $20 to $35.
And a hair follicle?
A hair follicle can run from $50 to $250, depending on how many drugs.
And in our program, if DSS or our volunteers were to see a situation where they feel a client needs to be tested because we're not a referring agency and DSS fills out the forms for them, does DSS pick up the tab for that?
Very good question. And I can't speak for DSS although we do about 90% of their testing with Richland County DSS, or perhaps more, they have been picking up the tab. But I know with budget issues and things like that, they are trying to push that over to making their clients pay for their own test. And we're already starting to see quite a bit of that. So I can't speak for DSS to say that they will pay for it or not. I know that it does happen both ways, and I know that they're starting. I'm seeing more DSS referrals that are coming in that they've requested the client to pay.
Say for a client who had to pay, is that an item that insurance will cover?
Not that I'm aware of at this time. We certainly don't file with insurance.
Okay.
So that, any other questions? Okay.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you so much for attending, listening to our program. You see Mr. Henry's contact information. Any other comments or concerns, feel free to contact our office. We thank you.